Hello friends, today I'm going to be explaining some programmer memes to you, a non-programmer. Even if you're a programmer, you're probably not as good a programmer as I am, so I'll be able to have a more in-depth understanding of the meme than you. So let's continue. If I go incognito, you won't track me, right? You won't track me, right? Basically, Google will track you regardless of what you do. So will Facebook, so will Instagram, probably WhatsApp. I mean, it's all Facebook. It's one backend. See, you, a non-programmer, don't even know this. You probably just think they're three separate companies, but really they're all the same company. They all belong to Mark Zuckerberg, which in German is Sugar Mountain. Mark Sugar Mountain. Where do you think he gets all that sugar from? It's from tracking you. So yes, even in incognito you're being tracked. All you're really doing in incognito is making sure that your search history is not saved. What you really want to do is use something like a VPN. Here's a picture of a cat, and it's got the back end and the front end. See, most of you won't get this, but web applications are split into back end and front end. And all they're really presenting to you is the front end, and the back end does all the information storage and retrieval. It's all crud. And you know, cats also have a front end and a back end, which is why the meme's funny. If you think bots won't take over our jobs, think again. So this is literally a repost from yesterday. If you watched my video on programmer humour, you will see this exact post. So what we're going to do is we're going to downvote this post. I live in Spain, but the I is silent. You see, in HTML, there are span tags. And if you remove the I from Spain, you get span. Therefore, this piece of text actually lives in span. That was funny. Are you years or older? Yes, no. Remember. This is a reference to how most people who code are complete idiots. You don't eat or sleep. You hate the sunlight. I know what you are. Say it out loud. Say it. You're a programmer. Basically, everyone thinks that everyone who programs just stays inside in the dark all day and they don't like sunlight, but really it's because they have to and they're depressed. Code challenges be like. Now I believe this is a GIF. Basically, for all you non-coders here, employers often like to give people coding challenges that just would never happen in a day-to-day office environment. They like to give really complex problems to you that require a kind of high IQ to solve. Yeah, on your day-to-day job it's all crud. You'll just be kind of updating buttons and stuff like that. In the hardest scenario, you might create a database migration where they're changing the structure of their tables. Not everyone should code. Recommended for you. This is a sad cat that realizes it actually can't code because it's a cat. Here we have a picture of Ice Cube. Today I didn't even have to use my keyboard. I got to say, it was a good day. I can relate. Basically, programmers, we don't actually like coding at all. We just like pretending that we like coding. It's more of a kind of, we think that someday we're going to miraculously build some kind of amazing software that's going to make us all billionaires. But the reality is we're just going to spend the next 30 years writing crud software. The UI is quite simple. Client will easily figure it out. Client. Here you have a client who's trying to figure out how to use the user interface of software, and basically you can see that they're not doing it very well. The software tells them to hold their finger, which is exactly what they're doing, but what it really means is for them to hold their finger against the little fingerprint bit. Now, basically customers are mostly stupid, so you need to make your design as minimalistic as possible. Not to mention, most software companies out there, especially SaaS, which tends to stand for software as a service, they overcomplicate their software once they get 1 or 2 big clients, because then those 1 or 2 big clients will continually demand more and more specific features that only work for them and none of the more generic clients. That's why SaaS, or software as a service, I think is sometimes a bad business model. What is your mother's maiden name? Berry. Basically, what we see here is the user's being asked to fill out a form, but the software developer behind this form has put an unnecessary constraint of more than 6 characters. So now, what is your mother's maiden name cannot be possibly answered. Computer programmers. I was going to learn C++ to make my programs faster, but in the end I just downloaded Python. So I thought this was going to be a dig, but instead we have a picture of what web developers have to do. And this is why web developers deserve the most respect, because if you look for almost any web developer job, they all require you to have like full stack knowledge. They want you to understand HTML, CSS, that's just standard. That's easy as far as an employer is concerned. You need to know JavaScript, because there isn't a single website out there that doesn't use JavaScript. You know, whether it's Vue.js, whether it's Angular, whether it's one of the other million frameworks, Node.js, React, it really doesn't matter. You need to know some form of JavaScript. And every website also has a way of interacting with the database. And usually this is done through a backend language, like PHP, or Python, or even JavaScript in some cases. And then you need a database. You need to understand SQL often, unless you're using an ORM. So you need to know how to use Postgres or SQL. Then you also need to know how to use the Linux command line. You need to understand how to do database migrations in some cases. You really need to know everything and all things, anything to do with any programming language ever invented. So web developers, I believe, deserve the most respect. I bought a new domain to use for your next project, right? To use for your next project, right? We've seen a lot of these memes lately. I'm not sure if I'm doing it justice, but basically, you non-programmers won't understand this, but people constantly buy new domains because they have an idea for a project, and then they think they're going to build that project. But the truth is, that person is completely delusional, and they themselves know that they are never going to build this project. So what happens is, they buy these new domains, and they renew them every year, costing them tens, maybe hundreds of pounds a year, and they never actually get around to building this project. Right now, I probably have about 10 domains, and I'm only using 1, so I am guilty. So we've been recording for a long time now, so I'm going to stop. Hopefully you, the non-programmer, will now understand some more programming memes. If you want to learn more about programming, then you should subscribe.